Like plants, people grow as well. Some in the light, others in the shadows. Many need the shadows rather than the light.
The shadow is a psychological phenomenon, the result of every thought, desire, wish, and ability that has been repressed, set aside throughout the course of a life. We end up being shaped by the people around us. They impose their concepts of what's right and what's wrong, what's pleasant and what's unpleasant, what's good and what's bad, and they end up forcing us to maintain only the behaviors considered acceptable. Our personality gets molded with one goal: to fit us inside that enormous group we call the world. The problem is that it's not just our darker impulses that get repressed by society. Social structures, family, friends, school, work, also make us suppress extraordinary and unique fragments of our personality, simply because they don't fit what is, in quotation marks, correct. Who has never felt that a part of themselves, a part that burned with emotion, with originality, with purpose, who has never felt that thing disappear? That it slowly died over time? We human beings are a sack of blood and bones, not very different from other animals. The only thing that sets us apart is our capacity to pursue and reach a potential. We have the ability to turn life into a work of art, into a masterpiece. And if we're lucky, by the end, we won't have too many regrets. What separates our current self from our maximum potential is precisely the shadow, that repressed part of our psyche. The shadow is the side of our personality that we hide from the world and from ourselves. Those thoughts, feelings, and desires that we don't want anyone to discover. Because no matter how much we want to reach the highest degree of evolution, none of us is as good or as elevated as we like to believe. We have animalistic impulses, desires for pleasure, for power, and other things that contradict everything society considers correct. And all of us have a dark side, an aggressive side, a cruel side, one capable of causing real damage to other people, a side very different from the person we believe ourselves to be. We always want to deny our flaws, our weaknesses, our thoughts. The problem starts to emerge when the question is asked, but where do these things actually go? The psychologist Carl Jung, Freud's disciple, believed they don't disappear. They sink into the unconscious and join what he called the shadow. Impulses, desires, emotions, and character traits that are incompatible with a person's conscious self-image. What Jung called the persona, a mask we wear every day to navigate the world. The version of ourselves we show to other people. And because of the rules and values of the culture we live in, these things cannot be accepted or integrated. They get pushed into the subconscious, and they keep exerting a powerful influence on our lives, in most cases, in a negative, disruptive way. They lead us to make automatic decisions, to live on autopilot, to not even notice we're sinking, and to not understand why it's happening. Jung believed the human mind is composed of several fragments, pieces to be organized and reintegrated, and the shadow is one of, if not the most important of those pieces, that needs to be included in our personality. Jung was a psychiatrist and psychologist who played a fundamental role in our understanding of human beings, not in physical terms, but in what we call essence, soul, or as he put it, the human psyche. He was a disciple and close friend of Freud, who essentially gave birth to the entire field of psychology. His main contributions include concepts like the collective unconscious, archetypes, and individuation. He believed that beyond our personal unconscious, the part of the mind where our individual experiences and memories live, there exists a collective unconscious, shared by all of humanity. This collective unconscious is made up of universal images and symbols, the famous archetypes. These influence human behavior and show up in myths, fairy tales, stories, religions, and many other areas of our lives. He also developed a concept called individuation, the process of personal development and the pursuit of maximum human potential, aimed at reaching a state of authenticity and wholeness, finally becoming the person you always wanted to be. Jung began his career as Freud's disciple, and their relationship started in the early 20th century. But even within that friendship, that shared growth, Jung ended up developing ideas very different from his mentors. The tension between them grew, and the final break came in 1913, triggered by a series of events including Jung's book Symbols of Transformation, which deepened every disagreement between them. Jung had a unique vision of the human mind, and it's worth clarifying. These concepts are abstractions, metaphors, that help us better understand how we function. There's no clear anatomical division in the brain. But Jung divided the mind, metaphorically, into four main parts. The conscious, the part in focus, made up of the thoughts, feelings, and perceptions we're aware of in any given moment. The collective unconscious, that deep layer shared by all human beings, containing universal elements present across all cultures, the home of archetypes, symbols, and images that influence our thoughts and behaviors. The personal unconscious, the layer containing contents that were once conscious but ended up repressed or forgotten. Our individual experiences, memories, thoughts that can't be accessed in the present moment, the things buried at the bottom of your being. And it's here that the shadow lives. The shadow is not made up only of negative aspects, and this is where things start to get interesting. The shadow also contains positive qualities that were neglected or repressed. Recognizing and integrating the shadow into the self doesn't mean embracing what's considered bad. It means embracing wholeness, acknowledging the complexity and duality that are part of the human condition. The shadow is simply a representation of the hidden and lesser-known aspects of ourselves. Whether those aspects are good or bad, exploring the shadow is a journey toward individuation, a process of becoming a more authentic person. The shadow only becomes dangerous when it's ignored. As long as we don't turn on the light and investigate what's in there, we won't understand a significant part of ourselves, and we'll be left with that horrible feeling that we don't even understand who we are. Take this example, a person who believes that making money is something inherently bad. That only bad people get rich. That wealth only comes through exploitation or stepping on others. And because they never truly confront that belief, never examine the logic behind it, that excessive fear of something buried inside the shadow, they end up with automatic patterns in their life they don't even notice. Difficulty getting the job they want, building the life they wanted, earning the money they wanted, all because of a shadow operating inside them that they've never faced. But there is no light without shadow. There is no wholeness without imperfection. That's something we tend to forget, especially today, when social media makes everyone look complete and perfect. But everyone has flaws and failures they don't show. There is also a collective shadow, and it's one of the things that feeds the growth of our own. It's made up of the lesser-known aspects of an entire society. A collective shadow surfaces in moments of war. We're watching that happen right now. Or in moments of political division, when there's a side A and a side B, and people are picking which team to root for. In those moments, we can clearly see people's shadows rising to the surface. For a shadow to be projected, an object must block the path of the light. And in our lives, that object is what we call the persona. Persona in Latin means mask or character. In Jungian psychology, it represents the metaphorical mask we wear in our relationships with other people. The part of us that others know. The collection of traits and behaviors we want others to believe define us completely. As Jung put it, a mask creates an expected impression on one side, and on the other conceals the true nature. The construction of the persona begins early in life, as we learn which elements of our personality earn approval from family, friends, society, and which ones get rejected. The approved traits get added to the persona. The rejected ones get hidden behind the mask. To make this concrete, just compare the way you talk about something with other people versus the way you talk to yourself when you're alone. Over time, to avoid feeling like a fraud, we start identifying with the persona. And in that process, we end up hiding those so-called undesirable character traits, not just from others, but from ourselves. Those repressed traits come together and form the shadow, our inferior side, the sum of all the psychic elements that, due to their incompatibility with the conscious attitude chosen by the persona, are denied expression in life, and as a result attach themselves into a fragmented, relatively autonomous personality with contrary tendencies. In other words, repressed content doesn't just sit quietly in the unconscious. It operates autonomously, behind the headlights of our perception, as if there were another personality inside us, acting on our behalf. And we don't even notice, because we chose to repress it. These elements haunt our lives. They affect our mood, our behavior. They create tension between the conscious personality and the shadow personality. And in moments of stress, conflict, or when we drink alcohol, for example, the mind becomes incapable of keeping those doors to the unconscious closed. The shadow reveals itself, often with real consequences. It works like a spring. The greater the force of repression, the greater the force of release. Another way the shadow manifests is through projection. This one is common, and once you notice it, you start seeing it everywhere. It's when we perceive in other individuals, or in other groups, other nations, weaknesses and flaws that actually reside within ourselves. You know that moment when you look at someone and think, what a terrible attitude. What a strange person. In reality, that's a projection of something that's weak or wrong inside us. We attribute to the other person all the inferior qualities we don't want to recognize in ourselves. We feel the need to criticize, to attack, when all that's happening is that one inferior soul, in quotation marks, recognized another just like it. Instead of denying this side of the shadow, this side of our personality, we need to illuminate it, make peace with our shadows. The shadow, as I said, contains far more than just the negative. Our failures and weaknesses, yes, but also the strengths of our character and personality that were repressed. Maybe through a poor education, when a teacher told you to shut up, kicked you out of the room, or your parents suppressed a specific behavior of yours. In our attempt to adapt to a society that is itself unwell, unprepared to receive anyone as they truly are, we stop being who we really are. We lose our individuality, our enthusiasm for life, and we have to sustain a mask. That's a burden for anyone. I notice it myself. In environments I'm not used to, I have to maintain a specific mask. And that's normal. Everyone does it. It's not about being fake, it's adaptation. But you leave those situations more drained, more exhausted. Imagine having to do that for an entire lifetime. To take advantage of the positive side of the shadow, to use the shadow in our favor, it's much more than just observing what's there. We need to consciously integrate the elements of the shadow into our character and personality, allowing them to express themselves in our daily life. That attitude, Jung believed, generates what he defined as a character that tends toward the ideal of healthy wholeness. He believed that as we approach a state of wholeness, we become better and more attractive to other people as well. Everyone is suspicious of someone who seems too good to be true. Far more interesting than being perfect is being complete. The whole person, one who knows not only their strengths, virtues, and potential for good, but also their weaknesses, flaws, and potential for harm. Those who believe they have only one side are deluded. And one of the many benefits of knowing this dark side is that it creates a greater contrast. It allows the good in our character to stand out more clearly. As Jung described, when we confront the shadow, we can suddenly see both sides. We become conscious not only of our moral inferiorities, but also more conscious of our good qualities. Integrating all of this allows us to no longer be controlled by anger, by selfishness, by greed, by aggression, by obsession. It gives us the opportunity to exercise a certain degree of control over those things. Remember the projection mechanism I mentioned earlier? One of the interesting ways to start understanding your own shadow is to use projection in your favor. Identify characteristics in other people that generate some kind of strong emotional reaction in you. Disgust, anger, a strong aversion. That's likely a signal that the same characteristic exists inside you. It's also worth trying to notice this in people close to you. That tends to be much easier than looking directly at yourself. And yes, although the shadow is something hidden in the unconscious, something deeply personal, much of what's deposited there ends up surfacing. It gets triggered by things in the environment. And when it does, you can see clearly which elements of the shadow are present in others, or possibly in yourself. Another positive aspect of the shadow, certain instinctive impulses. Desires for rivalry, for power, for pleasure, things we sometimes repress, often with some reason. But we need to admit that when we become conscious of them, these things carry an enormous amount of energy. We can exercise a bit more control over those impulses and use them to motivate us to take the necessary risks in pursuit of a life worth living.
The shadow belongs to the totality of the personality. The strong man must somewhere be weak. The intelligent man must somewhere be stupid. Otherwise, he's too good to be true. Isn't there an old truth that a woman loves the weaknesses of a strong man more than his strength, and the stupidity of an intelligent man more than his intelligence? Her love wants the whole man.
And I want to extend an invitation, one that I find difficult myself, but that I believe all of us should accept. The challenge of confronting the shadow, of accepting our flaws, or perhaps the qualities we ended up setting aside out of fear of judgment, out of fear of what society will do with our originality. When we explore this hidden side of ourselves, I think we have the opportunity to help heal a sick world. Most people see problems everywhere, in society, in others. They can't perceive the more serious problem that lives inside them. They can't understand that they are a character divided in two, and until they face that shadow side, they will remain divided, not knowing who they are beyond that social mask. When we face our shadow, we start to understand that everything wrong in the world that we criticize, that we rail against, it's also inside us, inside every human being. And the more we avoid our shadow, the stronger it becomes. It can explode all at once, at some unconscious moment in your life. This isn't work you finish in a day. It's a work of integration that lasts a lifetime, staying conscious of all those small details we talked about here, something that will never really be done. And of course, if we manage, over time, to integrate these things, we keep them within our field of vision. We can shape them in our favor, use them in our favor. The people we tend to admire most are usually people who are at peace with their own shadow. And that's something we all need to bring into our own lives.